Okay, let's take a look at the problem. 150 is what percent of 75? Obviously, the topic here is percent, and this is kind of a series of videos I've been doing on percent because I think a lot of people think they understand percent better than they actually do. Okay, most people I think could do basic percent problems, but when it comes to a little bit more interesting stuff, okay, and interesting problems like this one can tend to throw some people off because it's like 150 is what? That's bigger than. Well, anyways, I'm going to get to this problem here, but it can be a little bit confusing. So percent, it's just not like finding the percent of a number. Okay, that's like the basic kind of problems. But there's other interesting problems that you want to know about percent. And percent, if you think about it, it is everywhere. I mean, like, think about, how often do you see this percent symbol? You see it everywhere. You go to the store, it's like, oh, this is, 10% off, 15% off, or you look at your credit card bill, you have a certain interest rate, or your car loan, or your mortgage, whatever the case is. So whether it's financial stuff, or you're reading the news about inflation or whatever the case is, this symbol is everywhere. You get to know what it means. Okay, percent. If you're going to, you know, learn one math topic, really well, percent would be that topic. It's always kind of I always get a kick out of it as a math teacher when people are like, "When are you ever going to use this math stuff in real life?" Well, percent is absolutely. It's easy to sell this because, like, yeah, you'll see this symbol every day of your life, without a doubt. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get into this problem, and I'm going to do a couple quick basic problems just to kind of warm up and review some basic concepts behind percent. And again, I've done other videos on percent. You can check those videos out in my pre-algebra or algebra 1 playlist, okay, if you want to keep challenging yourself on percent. But let's just focus in on this particular problem for this video, okay? But before we get going, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is John. I'm the founder of TabletClass Math, and yes, indeed, I am a middle and high school math teacher, and over several years, I've constructed what I like to believe is one of the best online math help programs there is. Of course, I'll let you be the judge of that. If you're interested, you can find a link to my math help program in the description of the video. Now, basically, what I have is 100 plus different math courses. I have the big courses like pre-algebra, algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2. Soon going to have be launching pre-calculus. I have courses like college algebra, but I have many specialty courses, especially for test preparation. So if you're getting ready for like the GED, SAT, ACT, maybe the GMAT, GRE, maybe you're taking a nursing exam which has mathematics. Maybe you're going for a teacher certification exam. I have a lot of test preparation courses because there's so many different types of tests out there that you have to pass in order to get where you need to go, right? Like whatever your goal might be, whether it's to get into a particular college or an entrance exam, your placement exam, or maybe you want to take the CLEP exam and try to get credit for what you know. Math is everywhere. There's a lot of specialty exams out there that have math on it. So I've built these courses over the years. Very good, very effective. So you can check that out. But of course, um, a lot of my members do like independent study, like homeschool with my program. So it's full, complete curriculum. But let's say you're in a college algebra course, right, and you're not understanding your teacher. Well, a lot of people will use my college algebra course to get that instruction. Okay, you're pretty much going to get all the material for the most part, what you're learning in my course as well. So if you need a different way, if you need things explained differently, then check out my program if you like my teaching style. Now, one thing that you got to be doing is note taking. All right, I call this my golden rule of math. Over decades of teaching the subject, this is the one thing that's been consistent over time, and that is those students who take great math notes almost always have great math grades, and the reverse is true. Those students who take terrible math notes, no math notes, maybe they got this like photographic memory and they're like, listen, I just remember everything. Okay, I don't have to write anything down. I've heard that too over the years. Guess what? There's just too much going on in math. You have to write things down. Okay, don't rely on your memory. Okay, just believe me when I tell you, uh, take notes. Right? Who's in a better position to answer this question, you or me? Listen, a lot of things I can't do, but one thing I do pretty well is teach math. Not only because I have a degree in mathematics and a master's degree, is I've been teaching the subject for decades, and you just learn through experience. So don't ignore what I'm telling you about note-taking, okay? Improve if you need to improve, and most of you out there could stand some improvement. But in the meantime, you need something to study from, so I offer detailed comprehensive math notes to include pre-algebra, algebra 1, geometry, and algebra 2 trigonometry. You can find links to those notes in the description of this video. Okay, so let's tackle this problem. 150 is what percent of 75? So, I mean, this problem is kind of funny because this number is like bigger than this number. Let's make this problem a little bit easier. Okay, let's look at this problem. 10 is what percent of 75? So most of you are like, okay, this is a little bit, feels more like natural, okay? You're like, 10 is what percent of 75? Because when we're asking what percent a particular number is of another number, we're thinking about this number represents some sort of part out of this number, okay? So 10 is what part of 75? It's pretty much like the definition of percent loosely. Okay, that's how we can kind of think about it, right? Part out of the whole. So 10 is what percent of 75? Well, 10 is what part out of the whole. So we take 10 and we divide it by 75 and we get this decimal 0.13 and then with this 13333, it keeps going on forever and ever and ever. If you do this on a calculator, you'll see that. But let's just stop here, 0.133. We can do that just to let us know that it's going on forever or repeating. But again, the question is what percent? I don't have percent when I do this division. I have a decimal. So how do I take a decimal, okay, and write it as a percent? Well, what you do is you multiply by 100. Okay, now some other videos, when you want to take a percent and write it as a decimal, we do the opposite operation. What's the inverse operation? What would be the opposite of multiplication? Well, let's just do this. What's the opposite of addition? Subtraction, right? What's the opposite of multiplication? Division. So we want to go from a percentage to a decimal. We divide by 100. But when we want to go from a decimal to a percent, we multiply by 100. So we have 0.133 repeating. We multiply that decimal by 100, and we get the lovely percent, 13.3%. And that is the answer. Okay, so 10 is 13.3% of 75, and it makes sense intuitively. Always kind of use some common sense and check your answer. Does that make sense? Yeah, it makes sense. Okay, now let's look at another problem. And this is a little bit more interesting. What if I said 75 is what percent of 75? 75 is what percent of 75? Now, our previous problem, think of this almost as like a gas tank. Here's 75. It's maxed out. And if I said, what is 10? We go up to the 10 level, right? 10 is what percent of 75? We just answer that question. It's 13.3%, right? So that would be, you can see my problem right there. Let me just hide that. So at 10 gallons, let's just even think of this as gallons, right? If I said, okay, if we put 10 gallons in here, how full are we? Well, we're 13.3%. Again, it's this previous problem that we just got done doing here. Full, okay? This would be 13.3% full. Okay. So 75 is what percent of 75? Well, if I go all the way up and I fill this whole thing, all right, what percentage of this gas tank, is full? Okay, well, 75 is what percent of 75? Intuitively, hopefully you're like, oh, that's 100%. We're filled up completely. Absolutely. Okay, that's correct. But again, we want to kind of still think of this part and whole, concept here, just, so you don't make confusion. So if you're like, how do I figure this out? Again, if you got two numbers, use a smaller number. Get the concept, kind of warm up again with the concept. So we're going to take that part and divide it by the whole. So 75 divided by 75 is 1. But let's just have that decimal in there, 1.0. It's the same thing as 1. But we're going to take our answer, again, it's a decimal, and multiply by 100 because I want percent. So 1 times 100 is 100%. So 75 is 100% of 75. Okay? All right. But right now we're saying to ourselves, our problem that we're going to be doing next is what is 150 out of 75. What's 150 out of 75? So this is confusing, or it can be confusing, but that's why I kind of built up to this. All right, so we're going to do the same thing here, okay? Like if this is 15, if 15 is what percent of 75, we would put 15 out of 75, but it's 150. But we do the same thing, okay? So 150, that's still, it's not the part, okay? It was acting as a part because, more basic percent problems, you're doing some part out of a larger whole, but you can have the reverse here. You can have larger than 100%. Okay, and you're going to see that here in a second. So we're going to have this up here, okay, 150 out. How much is 150 out of 75? We're going to write it this way, okay? But if you get confused, you can always use a smaller number because the process isn't going to change, the numbers are, but it can be a little bit confusing. So 150 out of 75, we'll write this as this fraction, then we're going to go ahead and turn this fraction into a decimal. So 150 divided by 75 is 2 or 2.0. But let's do the same thing. To turn this into a percentage, we'll multiply it by 100 and we get 200%. Okay, so 150 is 200% out of 75. So think about our little like gas tank or some tank here. So 75 is here. There's 150. Okay, if we fill up all the way up to here, up to 75, we're at 100% capacity. But if I fill up again another 75, okay, so that would bring me to 150, okay, because this is 75, 75 and 75, right? So that's why I have another 100%, which means I have a total of 200%, okay? So again, percent problems, for most of you, you're saying like 6% of 55, you'll know how to do that, right? We change that percent to a decimal, multiply by the number. Okay, now we're not doing those type of problems in this particular video, but I've done, we'll have many other videos on percent again in my pre-algebra playlist. So, like I said, percent is one of these topics that I think a lot of students or a lot of people in general know the basic percent, but when it starts to become a little bit more interesting problems, they kind of start getting confused and they start going like, how do I do that again? Then we want you to be confident in your answers. So you're like, yes, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Anyways, so if you found this video somewhat informative, educational, better yet, you actually liked it, please consider smashing that like button. That certainly helps me out. And if you're new to my YouTube channel, please consider subscribing. I've been on YouTube for a long time, 10 plus years. It's a great platform for someone like myself who is obsessed with teaching math clear and understandable. I want you to stay excited about learning math. I don't want you to be defeated by math. I want you to learn the subject, okay? But the things that I stress, right? I spent time talking about notes. This is like, you got to follow this guidance, okay? I'm not making this up, right? It's just certain, when you're going to learn something, you got to ask yourself, you're going to take it serious or not? Because if you're not going to really take learning math serious, then you're going to end up with a lot of sad faces, and then you're going to be like, why is my math grade not that, good? Okay, well, are you doing the work? If you do the work and you follow the guidance of someone who knows how to, teach math, you're going to do just fine. All right, so again, if you need more additional help beyond this, there's plenty of videos on my channel, but my best work will always be in my math help program. Of course, you can pick up a set of notes if you'd like to as well. All right, so with that being said, I definitely wish you all the best in your mathematics adventures. Thank you for your time and have a great day.